Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm Sibs Matiela, and that means you are watching the Private Property Podcast, brought to you proudly by privateproperty.co.za. And what we do here is connect you to the heart of property. We are talking all things property, and because you and I both know that I don't know all of the answers to your burning questions, I bring in the experts who do. And today is absolutely no different. That's exactly what we're doing with the CEO of Better Bond, Mr. Coetzee. Carl, hello. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Tell me all about Better Bond.
Better Bond. Well, I think, I started with Better
I love
Bond.
the name.
Yes, our name says it all, right?
It's so self-explanatory.
Yes.
It's Better Bond.
Exactly.
Come on.
Our name says it all. You know what? I started Better Bond 3 years ago, and there's something that I really, really loved, is that we provide so much value to consumers by getting them the best deal that they can find, or what that's out there. So we're saving them a lot of money, but what gets me excited is we do it for free to the consumer. So that's what we do. We find you the best deal, and it's free of charge to you.
Carl, walk me through the process. I'm a first-time home buyer. I'm not entirely sure if I should be jumping into, property investment. I'm not sure if I want to have a place to sort of let out to other people or if I want to live there. The repo rate's just gone up by 75 basis points. It might be more in a month's time or 2 months' time. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I go, let me go to Better Bond. They can help me.
Yes, and for sure. I think the first thing, a piece of advice that I want to give is, the first thing you want to do when you want to get into the property market is get a pre-approval.
Okay.
Because you want to know, can I afford this? Do I qualify? A lot of people ask, do I qualify for a bond? Well, come to us. We can see if you qualify for a bond. We can see how much you qualify for. And that is sort of your ticket to the game. Because now you can decide, all right, I can buy for R1 million. And I'm qualified to do so. So what now? You can start looking at property. So then you can go to the portal, to private property. You can start searching for homes in R1 million in areas that you've heard of, that you like. And as soon as you find that dream home and say you want to stay there, you come to us. You put in your offer to the agent, and the agent will guide you very nicely through that process. You then come to us. We then do a formal application to all the banks. We negotiate on your behalf. So all of the finance stuff, which somebody always gets a bit nervous about, right? We did it all for you. We put in front of you 4 offers from the banks or 5 offers from the banks. We tell you what the requirements are, and you choose the deal that you want. And as simple as that, really. We then, as soon as your deal's been approved, then the agent will take you through the next process. But then you'll go through it to attorneys. They'll do the transfer of your property, and on average, 3 months later, you're a proud homeowner. It's not so difficult.
It's not so difficult with Better Bond. So I suppose what I would ask is, some people would be skeptical and say, well, why are you doing this for free?
Yes, well, it's quite simple. Because we're doing a lot of the work on behalf of the bank, so we're doing all the application, we're getting all the documents on behalf of the bank. We do all of that work. The bank is very happy to pay us a little commission for that, and that is why it's free for the consumer. And the bank is happy, so we all win in this game.
I hear you. Carl, so you talk about pre-approval being your ticket to the game. Under what circumstances would someone not, get that pre-approval that they're looking for? Maybe it would be a sum or an amount that's a bit lower than they were hoping for. Is there anything that they could do to sort of make that number increase or make them, more viable in the eyes of banks and lenders?
Yeah, so I suppose the biggest thing why you wouldn't get a bond or why you wouldn't get a pre-approval is your credit score. And that I always say is, you must pay your accounts on time. That clothing account, I know when I started in my career, at first I thought, I'll pay it every 3rd month when I have money. The biggest mistake I ever made. So pay all your stuff on time, because all of that gets fed back to the credit bureau, and that makes sure that you are a good payer. If the bank can see you are a good payer and you pay your stuff every month, you get a higher score.
Okay.
Now, the higher score you get, the more likely it is for you to get a bond. And then obviously your affordability is the other key part of it. So the bank will look at all your income, they will look at all your expenses, and we will say, all right, how much do you have left over that you can afford to pay on a bond? So those two elements are the key ones that will tell you how much you can buy for. Now, let's say now you can buy for R1 million and you're not ready because you want a R2 million house.
Yeah.
And don't go look at those houses before the pre-approval, because you're always going to look at the R2 million.
No, you're always looking at the houses first, Carl. Let's be honest. You look at the house first, then you go, how can I raise R5 trillion?
Exactly. But it's all got to do with affordability. So and with a deposit. So maybe you say, I'll wait a year. I'm going to save some money up for a deposit. If the bank see it very favorably. If you put down a bigger deposit, let's say 10%, you can qualify for a higher amount. So that's sort of in a nutshell what you can do to increase your chances and then get a higher bond amount.
I'm so glad you brought up this deposit discussion, because a lot of people would sort of place themselves out of the game and think, okay, I don't have my ticket to the game because I don't have enough to put down on a deposit. I don't have the 10%. And so I must not qualify for any kind of loan or lending. Is that true? It's
not true. A lot of first-time buyers don't have money saved up. Look, it's very beneficial. But if you don't, I think in Better Bond, 50% of all our bonds currently are 100% bonds. So where the bank gives you 100% of that loan amount, and so there's a lot of those deals going through. So you don't always have to have the deposit. Always better to have it, but it's not. You don't have to.
Okay, Carl, is there do people ever say I want this bond and then they take the money and they go to the Maldives?
It's almost impossible to do that.
Why?
It's not almost. It's
I'm not asking for me. I'm just asking. It's not something I was gonna do
for a friend.
I'm asking for other people who might have that idea.
Yes. No, you can't, because the money doesn't ever go physically into your account. So if the bank grants you a loan, as soon as the house registers, the bank will then grant you the loan. So the money never, so the bank will pay over that amount to the new or to the seller. So that money never goes into your account, unfortunately, or fortunately in this case. So you can't take the money and run.
Damn. Okay, that's fine. At least now we all know that that's not an option. Obviously, Better Bond does so much more. I mean, if you go onto your website, there's just a wealth of information for someone who's looking to get a bond and buy a home, either for the first time or maybe their fourth sort of investment property. You've made the journey so easy, especially just the resources that you offer on your website. Can you tell me a bit more about what it is that you guys offer outside of now going to all of the banks and doing all of their dirty work?
Yeah, and I think our biggest thing is, yes, so all of that dirty work we do, but I think the biggest thing that we help with is advice to consumers. Even if you buy your fourth property, you don't always remember all the processes, because it's quite an involved process. So I think what we pride ourselves on is advice. We have 160 consultants across the country that are true experts in bond financing. And what we do is they will take your hand from the day that you do your pre-approval right until your house is registered. And all of that is all around advice. So if you're a self-employed consumer, which is much more difficult to get a bond for because you must prove everything, we can tell you exactly what's all the documents you need. If we get your documents and it's not right, we can make sure it's right. So that advice piece is very important for us. And that's why we have so many skilled bond consultants in our world. And on our website, we publish articles there almost every day around, what is this process about, first-time buyers. If you do a building loan, what is that process? So it's really about educating the consumer to make the best possible decisions that he can.
I love that, because education just goes such a long way in making sure that people make the best decisions for themselves and for their pockets at the end of the day, that they're not throwing money away. And thank goodness for Better Bond, because you're making sure that kind of thing doesn't really happen. I want to ask you about sort of timelines. So now I've decided, I'm going to Better Bond. I've got my pre-approval. I'm ready to go. What does that timeline sort of look like from the time I go, okay, I'm getting my pre-approval, to getting the keys to now, my home, my very first home?
Yeah. So firstly, your pre-approval, once we get your documents, which we ask you for, we pride ourselves when we measure this. We now do a pre-approval in less than 2 hours.
Wow.
Okay, so pre-approval less than 2 hours, that's quick. That's your ticket to the game. Then really that next process is all on how long you'd waited till you or search for a home.
Yeah.
Right? So you're going to go onto
Let's assume I've been doing it for 5 years. My cart is full.
Cart is full, you know exactly which house.
Yes.
Okay. So then what you do is you take that pre-approval, you go to the seller, you and your agent, and you do an offer to purchase. Now, it's one document. It takes you half an hour to do. You sign your offer to purchase where you're saying, I will buy this property for R1 million. The seller must then accept that. So that can all happen in a day. Then if they accept that, and then you do your formal bond process. That differ. We've done bonds in 1 day, and
Wow.
on average it takes 3 days for all the banks to come back and everything to be completed. So there's another 3 days, let's say, and then the registration process can take some time. Okay, on average we register houses in 3 months' time. So from the day you sign that offer until the house is yours, so you get the deed of it, that'll take about 3 months. Sometimes it takes 6 weeks, depending on how busy the municipality is and the deeds office is. Or if there's a subject to, or there's conditions to the sale of the property, it can take 6 months. It all depends on that circumstances.
I want to ask, on the flip side of that, do you ever get people who get sort of buyer's remorse and then they go, this is too big of a thing for me to undertake right now. I changed my mind. I don't need the bond anymore.
Look, I think there's always a little bit, especially when you sign R1 million or R2 million or whatever.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. So that's why my advice is always be sure, because when you sign your offer to purchase, that offer to purchase that you sign, that is the binding document that you say, I commit to buy this house. It's very, very difficult to turn around from there to say, I don't want to anymore. Look, you can always negotiate with the agent and with the seller and say, listen, please, I don't want to. And if they allow you, fine. But it's a binding document. So before you put your name to paper and that offer to purchase, you must be sure that you want to buy.
Tell me more about your property journey, specifically what you wish you had known at the time.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, because now we've got Better Bond, right? We've got all sorts of, we've got privateproperty.co.za. There's so many resources out there to make sure that you have all of the information that you need to have. But there are circumstances where sometimes there's an overload of information and you don't take in the right stuff that you really need to know. So I suppose I'm asking how to sift through everything to make sure that you've really got the meat of the thing.
Yeah. So I think, again, it comes to, this advice that we're trying to give you. We take a lot of that clutter away and trying to say, listen, this is now what you do. This is the next step, because, we can give you all the steps beforehand, but like you say, you get totally sort of bombarded with information. Maybe the advice, something I've learned when I bought my first house, is that fine, you get the bond and you know how much you're going to pay for your bond, but there's a lot of other costs. So must pay your utility bills. There's rates and taxes that you have to pay. So whatever you budget, so let's say you want to spend 10,000 Rand amount on your house, your bond shouldn't be that, because you've got all that other expenses. And that's something I learned very quickly. There's maintenance on the house. Because remember, if you were renting, somebody was somebody else's problem with the geyser goes, but now it's yours. So I think the auxiliary costs around buying a house, I think consumers must understand that and make sure that they budget for that. And have extra money in their budget to be able to cover that. That's probably the biggest thing I've learned when buying this house.
Okay. So we're coming to the end of 2022, obviously going into the beginning of 2023. Do you see a lot of first-time buyers now on your portal being like, help me, especially now, obviously, with the things that are happening economically and with the,
interest rates.
Yes, sky high, just rocketing, at levels that people weren't necessarily expecting at this stage. In your forecast, do you see that there's going to be an uptick maybe in home buying?
Yeah, so I do think the market will soften in 2023. We come out of two of the best years that we've had in a very, very long time, right? With interest rates going up, I was trying to say that interest rates are still lower than it was pre-COVID, right? So it's still affordable. However, we know it's going to go up. So we know that. So we do see the market coming down a little bit and softening a little bit. we did see, and we've seen in the sort of past 6 months, we saw the percentage of first-time buyers actually becoming less, because first-time buyers typically buy at the most of their budget. So if the interest rate goes up, their affordability is
down.
less. So there's less of those consumers in the market. We actually see guys in the upper end, sort of 3 million rand and a plus, they buying properties because they're less affected by the interest rates. So currently we will see that shift, and I expect that shift to happen in 2023. Less first-time buyers because there's less people that can afford it, but I don't foresee a slow or downturn where we are very worried and there's no buyers.
Yeah.
People always need a place to stay. There will always be people that can afford it and that would need a house. So definitely, I think about a 10% drop in volumes of transactions coming into the new year.
I'm curious, with those first-time home buyers, would you say they're making a good decision? Like, yeah, tighten your belt, wait until your affordability is a bit better, wait for the interest rates to sort of level out? Or would you say maybe start small, maybe look at alternative ways of investing in property that don't require as much from you? What would you say?
I would definitely say it's always a good time to get into property. The sooner you get in there, the sooner you start building equity in your house, the better it is. Obviously always linked to your affordability. So whatever the interest rate might be, it's so easy to go calculate. You go into our website, to the calculator, you can say, we know interest rate's going to go up by at least another percentage point. So if it's 9.75 now, go see what you will repay at the higher one, put that in your budget, and if you can afford that, get into the game. Because you can sell that house in a couple of years' time. Most probably there will be equity in it, so you'll make a little bit of a profit, and you can use that as a deposit onto your next house. So in my mind, and my opinion, the sooner you get into it, the better.
Okay.
As long as you can afford it.
Here's another one. Does property ever depreciate?
Good question. It is highly unlikely, depending on a lot of factors, obviously. So some of the factors are, if you live in an area that maybe there's something happening, where it deteriorates for some reason, crime increases. We could see.
Welcome to South Africa.
Well, that's true. But if it's more so than what we, if there's something happening in the area, you could see house prices in a negative growth. So it's possible. Stats has shown us over a long period of time, because remember, property is a long-term investment.
Absolutely.
You're not going to do it for a year or two. Over time, there's a very, very small percentage of homes that don't appreciate. So it still remains a good investment. It's highly unlikely. It does happen, but if you look at a 10-year period, highly unlikely.
Got you. Last thing I'll ask you before I let you go. Why Better Bond?
I think we've got a passion for helping more South Africans get into homes. And that's what we live in our mantra. So yes, there's a lot of people that can do what we do. I tell you that we wake up in the morning, and I speak on behalf of my team. We wake up because we want to put more South Africans into homes, and that's why I say Better Bond.
Okay, and that's why we'll go with Better Bond. Coetzee, the CEO of Better Bond, thank you so much for joining me on the Private Property Podcast.
Thank you. It was so much fun.
We'll have you back very, very soon. Maybe you can put a roof over my head there at Better Bond, but I first have to play the Powerball and the Lotto.
Okay.
But then after that, I'll call you.
Please do.
Listen, that's all from me this evening on the Private Property Podcast.